And our next guest is a product lead who worked with a team of developers and engineers to make the Ethereum proof of stake merge possible. Sajida Zouarhi joined ConsenSys as a research engineer in 2017, then became a product lead for Besu, an execution client of Ethereum, until June of 2022. Please join us and welcome Sajida. She's a blockchain architect and technical consultant. Thanks for coming on to the show. And, I just want to be clear, what was your exact role in contribution to the merge?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. So as you mentioned, I was working as a product lead with the Besu team. Besu is an Ethereum client. There are several Ethereum clients that compose the execution layer of the Ethereum infrastructure and help run the network. And so I was basically working with a team of several engineers and developers. And our goal was to implement the specification of the Ethereum protocol. So not many people know exactly how protocol development is done. Actually, it's a group of people that we call the all-core dev that gather and discuss what are the specification of the Ethereum protocol. But then it's the responsibility of the individual client teams to implement those specifications. And the reason why we have so many different clients is because each client is developed in a different language. And so the Besu client that I was working on was developed in Java. But for example, the most famous execution client out there, Get, is developed in Go.
Mm-hmm. And just wondering, how do you think the merge went from your perspective? Were there any technical problems that could arise or challenges ahead?
I think it went even better than I have anticipated. It was a bit even anticlimactic for me. Not that I expected something bad to happen, but we've spent so many times thinking about all the scenarios where there would be an attack or a bug or whatever. So much time spent in testing, doing shadow forks, running DevNet testnets, and all types of interoperability scenarios. And so just the fact that it was almost a non-event is just a huge success for the community.
Bienvenue, Sajida. We have to ask a question, of course, about Ethereum, the proof of work, the fork. Do you think that it was necessary? What do you think? We're seeing, and we had Chandler Gao just on a couple of minutes ago. He seems to think that it's gone moderately well. But do you think that it was worth it? Do you think that this is sort of a fool's errand?
I think, it's like with everything, when there is a big change, for some people, it's sometimes hard to, move forward. And so it is a usual consequence that happen when some big disruption happen. And so I don't believe much in the future of Ethereum proof of work, but I also think that the beauty of being in open source and in blockchain especially is that things like that can definitely happen, and nobody has to decide whether it should exist or not. It just happens, and then we see how it goes.
So you mentioned that Geth is the most popular execution layer client on Ethereum with 78% use. And just to be clear, an execution layer client helps maintain and manage the overall state of the blockchain. It also helps with completing transactions. And you worked on Besu, which has about 3% of the pie, but you've left recently, correct, to diversify the available clients. And, maybe you could go into a bit about that and, what you're doing next.
Yeah. So actually, the network share of Besu has increased a lot in the last year. So we were pretty happy about that with the team. You can check the latest stat on Ethernode. So the reason why client diversity is so important for me and in general for the community is because diversity in the stack and in a system in general brings resiliency overall. And so what that means is that if there is a bug or an issue, for example, with one client, because we have diversity in the infra, it's not a big deal. But if everybody is using the same software and there is a critical failure that happens, then the whole network is in danger. And so by having people spread usage across different types of clients, we minimize that risk. So this is why client diversity is important.
Do you think you're going to get more? Do you think that you'll get more client diversity with proof of stake than you did before with proof of work? And if so, why?
That's a good question. I think what is interesting with the proof of stake paradigm is that now the architecture has evolved. So now, as you know, there is the execution layer and the consensus layer with the beacon chain. And so we have a whole new generation of Ethereum clients that are handling the consensus part. And you can check the stats and you can see that the diversity is much better on the consensus layer. So yes, in short, the answer is this event has helped improve diversity, at least on the layer that is handling the consensus, which previously was done by the execution client as we know them. However, all the processing is still being done on the execution side, and so that just means a risk remains. And I feel like the merge has opened people's eyes on this issue of diversity. The fact that the community did so well on the consensus layer, I think that's encouraging, and that means that yes, we can definitely make some progress on the execution layer.
So what's next for Ethereum beyond the beacon chain? What are the next steps in development?
Yes, so there is this very interesting article and diagram from Vitalik, with the verge, the splurge, etc., the purge. So you can check that for more details. But basically, Ethereum is based on this trilemma of security and decentralization and scalability. And so, yeah, the roadmap is pretty clear. It's keep improving the security, keep scaling Ethereum so that more decentralized application can be deployed on it, can welcome more users. We need to increase adoption. It's going to come by improving the performances of Ethereum network. And so all these EIP, so Ethereum improvement proposal that are going to come in the next upgrades are going to keep working on achieving those goals. So in a sense, the merge is not really the end game or like the conclusion of what Ethereum has been working towards so far. It's really just the beginning, and it's a proof of concept that yes, when we coordinate and we work together, we can achieve something as big as this milestone. But it just means that we need to work harder and especially welcome newcomers to the Ethereum ecosystem, train more core devs, etc., to start working on the next challenges that the Ethereum protocol is going to be facing. To give you an example, there is some work being done on sharding that is super interesting, and just more EIPs coming in the next upgrade that have been sort of put on the side because of the merge. So this is also to say that for some people, the merge has taken a lot of bandwidth, and it's true, and you have to recognize that because we wanted to make sure that it goes well. But the innovation on Ethereum is very rich, and so we will see what people have been working on in the last few years coming after the merge.
There's some who are arguing that the merge has made the Ethereum network more inaccessible because to stake, properly stake on Ethereum, you'll need, let's say, $50,000 worth of Ether versus a few miners the way you would before. What do you say to that to that criticism?
Well, I think it's natural comeback for most people because it represents quite a sum. But if you look at the security guarantees that we need to achieve just from a mathematical standpoint, that number was not picked at random. And there were other scenarios where it was much higher. So the fact that we were able to reduce it to 32 is, a big win in itself. The second side is, if you take a look at other blockchains like Solana, etc. Just the hardware that you need to run the nodes and to participate to the network is a blocker for, I would say, usual people in the community. So I think in terms of what Ethereum is bringing to the table currently, what it represents in terms of Web3 economy, what it has proved to be able to do, I think it's going to be okay in terms of accessibility. The real issue, I would say, is going to be diversity. Because currently what we are seeing is that most of the validation is being done by, centralized actors. The fact is that there is not much that we can do from a technical standpoint. It's up to the community to start validating either on their own or go with solutions that are more decentralized and distributed and not centralized exchanges, for example.
I saw that Lido was taking a huge lion's share of the pool in Ethereum nodes. Is that a concern?
It is a concern. Absolutely. Again, it goes back to what I was explaining on the client diversity. The more you recentralize things in the system, the more you lose that advantage that we had opposed to centralized system, which is having a single point of failure, kind of. And so the good thing, though, is that in the end, we are all humans. And it's interesting to see that the teams in Lido are working with other people from the community, and they see that as a concern. Just as the majority, the super majority Ethereum clients, when people were saying, you guys need to stop using basically their software and use the software of this other client team, they were not especially angry about this. They were like, well, yeah, I mean, they're not right. If we have the supermajority, any bug on our software is going to bring the network down. And if you're long-term oriented, you know that it's not something that you do. It's better to have a smaller share of a network that is healthy than the lion's share of a network that can go down at any moment if one of your engineer or anything is messed up in your system.